yesterday, in an answer to Senator Kennedy, you said, the FBI is not in possession of any credible evidence that Epstein trafficked girls to anyone but himself. So according to your testimony yesterday and in this committee, according to the evidence the FBI has, the number of names on the list are zero.
No,
zero.
The index has been released, and the number of people involved in that trafficking operation were charged in 2018.
Other than Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, your testimony in the Senate and here is that according to the evidence you have, the number of other names is zero.
That were charged based on credible evidence.
Well, who are the other names? Give me the other names that weren't charged.
The hearing room was already tense before the cameras began to roll. Lawmakers shuffled papers, aides whispered in tight circles, and reporters leaned forward in anticipation. At the center of the storm sat FBI Director nominee Kash Patel, composed but visibly bracing for impact. Across the dais, Representative Jared Moskowitz adjusted his microphone stand, his expression focused and unflinching. What followed would quickly become one of the most talked about exchanges on Capitol Hill this year. The topic was not unexpected, but the intensity was. The name alone carries a weight that has never fully dissipated from the American political consciousness, Jeffrey Epstein. Years after Epstein's death in federal custody, questions continue to swirl around the extent of his network, the handling of evidence, and the list of individuals who may have been connected to him. For many Americans, the sense that the full truth has not yet surfaced lingers heavily. Moskowitz began calmly laying out a timeline. He referenced past investigations, sealed documents, and prior commitments made by federal officials to transparency. He spoke deliberately, each word measured, as if building towards something larger. Patel listened, hands folded, occasionally nodding but offering no interruption. Then Moskowitz shifted, He cited newly declassified communications and investigative summaries reportedly tied to Epstein's associates. While careful not to disclose sensitive material in open session, he suggested that certain lines of inquiry may not have been pursued with the urgency or breadth the public expected. The implication was clear. Oversight may have faltered, and leadership accountability was now on the table. Patel's posture stiffened slightly. Observers in the room later described it as the moment the temperature changed. The congressman pressed further, asking whether the FBI under Patel's leadership would commit to reopening or expanding aspects of the Epstein investigation if credible new evidence warranted it. Patel responded cautiously, emphasizing respect for ongoing legal boundaries and the importance of protecting victim privacy. He reiterated that the Bureau's mission is guided by facts, not politics. But Moskowitz was not finished. He referenced connections that have long fueled speculation, high-profile names, past plea deals, and the controversial non-prosecution agreement that Epstein received more than a decade ago in Florida. That deal, brokered before Epstein's federal charges in New York, has been criticized across party lines as unusually lenient. Though Patel was not in a leadership role at the time of that agreement, Moskowitz framed the question around institutional responsibility. The exchange grew sharper. Moskowitz asked directly whether Patel believed the American public had been given the full truth about the scope of Epstein's operations. Patel paused. The silence lasted just long enough to amplify its weight. He responded that transparency must be balanced against due process, ongoing litigation, and national security considerations. It was a careful answer, but not one that satisfied every listener. Political analysts quickly noted that this confrontation was about more than just Epstein. It was about public trust in federal institutions, especially the Federal Bureau of Investigation. In recent years, confidence in major agencies has fluctuated amid partisan scrutiny and competing narratives about accountability. As the hearing continued, Moskowitz introduced a new element testimony from victims' advocates who argue that key questions remain unanswered. He asked whether Patel would support broader disclosure of investigative records once legally permissible. Patel affirmed his commitment to lawful transparency, but warned against what he described as trial by headline. The phrase echoed through social media within minutes. Commentators on both sides seized the moment. Supporters of Patel argued that he was being pressed to speculate on matters still under legal constraint. Critics countered that elected officials have a duty to demand clarity, especially in cases involving systemic abuse and potential institutional failure. In the background of this confrontation loomed the earlier prosecution of Epstein in the Southern District of New York, which ultimately ended with his death in custody. That event alone sparked countless investigations, Inspector General reports, and conspiracy theories, though official findings pointed to severe lapses in jail oversight rather than foul play. Public skepticism has persisted. Mosk pivoted to another sensitive dimension: the web of powerful individuals who were once associated with Epstein socially or professionally. While no direct accusations were made during the hearing, the mere mention of past associations involving figures like Donald Trump and Bill Clinton underscored the bipartisan implications of the case. The Epstein scandal has never belonged to one party alone, and that reality continues to complicate efforts at resolution. Patel emphasized that guilt by association is not evidence of criminal conduct. He stressed that the Bureau's investigations must rely on substantiated facts, not speculation driven by media cycles or political agendas. Yet the intensity of Moskowitz's questioning suggested a broader concern, whether political sensitivities in the past may have influenced investigative decisions. He asked bluntly whether Patel would resist any external pressure from Congress, the White House, or party leadership if future inquiries led to uncomfortable places. Patel answered firmly that the FBI must operate independently and that he would uphold that principle without exception. The exchange became a defining moment of the hearing. Clips circulated widely online under dramatic captions, some declaring Patel stunned, others is praising his composure. In truth, the director nominee maintained a measured demeanor throughout. But there was no denying the gravity of the confrontation. Beyond the personalities involved, the substance of the debate highlighted enduring questions about how institutions confront powerful wrongdoing. Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell is currently serving a lengthy prison sentence. Yet many observers believe her conviction and answered only part of the story. The broader network, financial backers, enablers, and silent participants remains a subject of ongoing interest and speculation. Moskowitz concluded his line of questioning with a demand for commitment. If confirmed, would Patel prioritize victim-centered transparency and provide Congress with regular briefings on any credible new developments related to Epstein's network. Patel agreed to lawful oversight, but reiterated that he would not compromise active investigations or protected information. As the hearing adjourned for recess, analysts began dissecting the political calculus behind the moment. Some suggested Moskowitz was channeling bipartisan frustration that the Epstein saga never reached a sense of closure. Others argued the confrontation served as a broader test of Patel's independence. In the days following, the story evolved into something larger than a single exchange. Editorial boards debated whether Congress should establish a new bipartisan commission to review outstanding Epstein-related materials. Advocacy groups renewed calls for unsealing additional court documents. Legal scholars weighed in on the limits of disclosure when cases intersect with privacy rights and sealed testimony. Meanwhile, Patel's supporters pointed out that he had not been directly responsible for the original Epstein investigations, framing the questioning as symbolic rather than substantive. Still, symbolism matters in Washington. Public hearings often serve as stages for broader societal debates, and this one was no exception. The American public's enduring fascination with the Epstein case reflects deeper anxieties about wealth, power, and justice. When individuals of extraordinary influence appear to evade full accountability, even the perception of uneven enforcement can erode institutional legitimacy. Moskowitz's confrontation tapped into that sentiment. Tan, in subsequent interviews, he clarified that his objective was not to accuse Patel personally, Tan, but to secure firm commitments about future transparency. He argued that restoring trust requires proactive disclosure whenever legally feasible. Stan Patel, in his own media appearances, emphasized that the Bureau cannot operate based on public pressure alone. The tension between those two positions, maximum transparency versus procedural restraint, captures the broader dilemma facing federal institutions today. Some political strategists speculate that the exchange could shape confirmation votes, particularly among lawmakers who prioritize institutional reform. Others believe it will fade as the news cycle shifts to new controversies. Yet the Epstein case has demonstrated a unique staying power. It resurfaces repeatedly, fueled by document releases, investigative reporting, and public curiosity about unanswered questions. If Patel ultimately assumes leadership of the FBI, he will inherit not only the Bureau's ongoing caseload, but also the lingering shadows of past controversies. His performance during the Moskowitz exchange may be remembered as an early signal of how he intends to navigate those shadows. For Moskowitz, the moment reinforced his reputation and as a lawmaker willing to confront uncomfortable subjects head-on. Whether one views the exchange as necessary oversight or political theater likely depends on prior assumptions about institutional integrity. As the cameras shut off and the room emptied, the echoes of the confrontation lingered. In Washington, hearings often generate more heat than light, but occasionally they crystallize unresolved national questions. This was one of those moments, The Epstein saga remains incomplete in the minds of many Americans. Court records tell part of the story. Convictions address some wrongdoing, yet the full contours of influence and accountability remain contested terrain. In confronting Patel, Moskowitz did more than press a nominee. He brought that contested terrain back into the spotlight. Wow. Whether it leads to renewed investigations, expanded transparency, or simply another chapter in a long-running debate remains to be seen. But for now, the image endures a lawmaker leaning forward, a nominee measured but resolute, and a nation still searching for clarity in the aftermath of one of the most disturbing scandals of the modern era.